to the webinar for introducing Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013. What I'll be doing today is taking you through the general look and feel of Dynamics GP as a system, hopefully giving you a good idea as to lots of little bits and bobs you can do. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by logging into the system. And from an installation perspective, Dynamics GP, I'll call it GP from now on, can be loaded locally, so you can have it installed as what's known as a FAT client on your individual PC, or alternatively you can have it stored on a terminal server or Citrix to allow greater use of a larger number of users. So when you log in, what you'll be presented with is a user ID and password. Each one of those is unique to a specific user, so I'm just going to log in as myself. And the next window I'll be presented with is the GP company that I'd like to log into. Now I have two companies. There really isn't a limit on the amount of companies you can have within GP. And what you can do is you can restrict users on a company-by-company basis as to which ones they can get into. So I'm going to log into my company here. Okay, and this is Microsoft Dynamics GP 2013. I'll start off by giving a little bit of navigation as to what you can see within the window in front of you. Okay, so when you first log into GP, you'll be presented with your home page, and the home page is tailored to the individual user. You'll see that I'm logged in as myself, and you see this is my home page. And I have a number of different options along here, and I can tailor them to what I do as a job role, specific reports I want to be able to run, shortcuts to not only GP windows, but Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, web pages, other applications, anything you want. So this is my home page here, and I'll come back to that in a little bit more detail in a short while. So the look of Dynamics GP is it's very office-based. It's designed to look a little bit like Outlook, so it's very, very familiar. So you see along the top here you have got an address bar, and what that address bar does is it shows you where you are in the system. So you'll see I'm logged into my home page, but what it also does, if I click on another page within the system, it remembers those, and so I can easily chop and change between my regularly used windows. Underneath that I have my Great Plains toolbar. And that is a way of, again, creating shortcuts to do specific tasks. And you see, if I want to do a transaction, I can simply go to Transactions, and that's where I would then do either a financial transaction, sales transaction, purchasing transaction, so on and so forth. I have multiple modules loaded, and that's why you can see lots and lots of information on my palettes. But what you can do is you can, again, limit what individual users see, depending on their day-to-day tasks and roles, so on and so forth. Inquiries are on-screen inquiries, so if I wanted to look at a balance of a particular debtor, or a nominal code, or an inventory item, I can go into the inquiry window and have a look at individual items. You can print the majority of the inquiry windows as well. Next to inquiry you have reports, which is where you print out your reports. So if you want to print off a trial balance, an account code listing, so on and so forth, you would do that from within reports. And again, as with transactions and inquiry, you'll see they are broken down into ledger. Next to reports is cards, and cards is where you hold all your static information. And the reason it's called cards is it steps back to the olden days when they had Rolodexes, and you would fill out a client contact, for argument's sake, on a Rolodex card and then pop it into your Rolodex. So that's why it's called cards. And as I said, cards is all your static information, so nominal codes, bank accounts, debtors, creditors, anything along those lines. And again, once you click on cards, it's broken down into ledger by ledger. That's a standard GP toolbar, and then underneath what you have here, I have a user-defined toolbar, and I've got a number of things on there that I use on a regular basis. And so what I've done is I've added them to the toolbar at the top so that I can actually see them no matter what I'm doing, and that is tailorable on a user-by-user basis. One thing that's very, very handy in GP is the help function, and you'll see in any of the windows, you'll see you have got a help icon. So you can click on that and it opens up help. And there's lots and lots of help functions available. There are a lot of printable manuals, which most of them are in excess of about 250 pages, so they're very, very detailed. You can also, as per any Microsoft or Office help, you can search for a particular item. One thing is very, very handy is if you do want to find help on a specific item, you can simply click F1 and it opens up contextual help. So it will open up the help for the window that you are currently in. At the moment I'm in the home page, so let's open that up for you. And you see it's very, very detailed. Moving underneath the toolbar, what I then have is I have what's known as my navigation pane. And the navigation pane is broken down into two parts. I have my shortcuts, which is self-explanatory. They are shortcuts, and they can be shortcuts to GP Windows, Excel. You have your navigation pane, and the navigation pane is broken down into two parts, which is shortcuts at the top, and they can be shortcuts to absolutely anything you want at all. GP is designed to be a desktop, so once you're starting your day-to-day tasks, you shouldn't really be able to ever need to leave the GP application. So you can add shortcuts to anything you want, whether it be Excel, Word, web pages, other applications, GP Windows, anything at all, you can add onto your shortcuts. In addition to the shortcuts, you have your pages. And what these pages relate to is anything that relates to that particular ledger. So if I wanted to open up all my windows, reports, inquiries, so on and so forth that related to my general ledger, I would simply click on Financial. And you'll see that this is broken down into transactions, inquiries, reports, and each one of these is simply a shortcut to open up the window. And again, this is tailorable down to a user level security depending on the role that a specific user carries out in both the system and an individual company. What you also have is when you open up a particular page, whether it be financial or sales or purchasing, you have a number of reports that specifically relate to that ledger. So you'll see I've opened up purchasing. I have a range of purchase ledger reports which I can print out from here. So if I wanted to easily print off a list of my creditors, what you'll then see is a list of all my creditors. And I'm just going to remove that on the right hand side. And what I can do from here is I can select an individual creditor. I can go to view their transactions, or I can mark all of them, and I can dump them into Excel, or I can put them on hold. Or what I can also do, I can double click the record and it opens it up. I can apply documents, so on and so forth. And you'll see those in the general ledger, sales ledger, and the purchase ledger. So I'm just going to go back to my home page now. Just to show some of the window features that are available, I'm going to open up my nominal code window. And the first thing you'll see when I've opened this window is that I have got some fields which are in bright red. These are what's known as required fields, which means I have to fill them in to be able to proceed any further. And you'll see these required fields and whether they are static records such as an account code, transactions, inquiries, so on and so forth. So it helps the user actually fill in key information. What you'll also see is I've just got some straightforward black static text fields. They are purely and simply for any specific static information that you may want to record against a record. And as I said, don't worry too much about that. I'm in the account maintenance window. This is across the board, whether it be setting up debtors, creditors, account codes, bank accounts, so on and so forth. What you'll see, again, I have got my help function. So if I hit my F1 key again, it now opens help for the specific window that I'm in, and you'll see it actually gives me information on what the fields mean, what the buttons mean, and I can also get a little bit of help on a specific task that I may or may not want to do. I can scroll through my records by using what's known as the video buttons at the bottom. And I can also easily search for a specific record that I'm looking for by clicking on the Lookup. And the lookup is a magnifying glass which you'll see in virtually every single window in GP. So I've just gone into the lookup, and this, because I'm in the account maintenance window, has given me a list of all my account numbers. And I can search and filter on any of the columns that I can see within here. And also, if I wanted a little bit more information, I can also add those in as well. If I wanted to find every nominal code that began with V, I can type in V and it takes me down there. But for argument's sake, if I wanted to find all my nominal codes where the description contained postage, I have an advanced search where I can search on any of the columns that I have displayed. So account description contains postage. And what the system will then do is it will go away and find everything that falls within that range. I can assign specific reports to this particular window. So if I wanted to if I wanted to very easily print off a trial balance for that particular account code in detail or summary, or what I can also do is I can drill down to have a look at the balances for a particular code, I can do from this window very, very simply. I can also add notes to specific records, and again, this can be transactions. So for argument's sake, one thing that's quite handy on is purchase ledger transactions. What you may want to do, if you put your expenses through the purchase ledger, you may want to attach the expense claim report. What you can do is you can attach that as a note. And a note can be in two formats. You can just type anything you like and attach it, and you'll see that that then becomes a yellow page with lines on to tell me I've got a note attached. Or alternatively, you'll see I've got a paperclip down here. That allows me to add a scanned document, a Word document, Excel spreadsheet, anything at all, so that then becomes part of that individual record. And because I've added a note there, that note field will be available no matter whether I'm in inquiries, processing transactions, so it's quite good from an information perspective. I can also print any of the windows by simply clicking Control-P. And it prints out the record that I've got displayed, and again, primarily this is useful for inquiries, and what I can do is I can then email that to anyone within the organisation, or I can very, very simply print it. And from there, I'm just going to close that. Now, from a processing perspective, it's very, very simple to use. And once you process the transaction, you can actually very easily drill back down from a very, very summary level down to a detailed level. So what I'll do is I'll go back into my account code window, and I will find an account code that I know I have got some costs against. So what I'm going to do is find my purchase ledger control account. So I'm going to do a description contains control. And I'm going to click on my summary, and you'll see that within my summary window I have got some balances, and what I'd like to do within these balances, I want to have a look and see what's made up of it. So I'm going to click on my period 10, which is October. I'm going to drill down, and what I'll then do is it shows me the more detailed information for that particular account code. So what I can then do is I can then drill down even further, and then down to the original transaction where I can see that was actually a purchase ledger payment made against my A travel company. I can see the invoice that it was also applied to as well. So it's very, very simple to get down from an inquiry summary level by period down to the original transaction. Let's go through that again. And you can narrow these down by date range, by type of transaction, currency if you're using multi-currency, and then we have down to the original one. And as I was saying previously, if you've added a note on, I would then be able to see that within there. From that perspective, what you'll see within the inquiry window is I have got my periods set up, and there is a limit of 367 accounting periods per financial year. Realistically, most people tend to have 12 or 13. So you can actually tailor these very, very simply. Going into my financial periods, and what you'll see for 2013, I have got all my financial periods set up, and I've got period name. To change period name, very, very simple. You simply overtype it. You'll see on the right-hand side I have a number of tick boxes next to the period start date, and what this indicates is that the financial period is closed. And from that perspective, if I wanted to try and process a transaction for January in 2013, it wouldn't let me because the financial period is closed itself. And so to demonstrate what that would actually do, I'll just open up my general journal window and type in 01/01/13. It will say to me that the financial period is closed. You still want to continue. So what that will enable you to do is save a transaction, but it will not post. So that allows a greater degree of control for your transactions. The good thing is that if you do need to reopen a month and process any adjustments, it is simple as unticking the box. The general ledger for October is now open again, and I can post. And from a user's security perspective, you would obviously limit this window down to high-end users only who would be able to open and close financial periods. Structure within here, I've got 3 segments, and again with the segment structure of GP, you can have up to 66 characters and 10 segments. The most common is between 3 and 5 segments, and each one of these segments identifies a different chunk of the chart of accounts. And I'll show you my chart of accounts setup. So within here you see I've got 3 segments itself. My segment 1 is department, segment 2 is my nominal, and segment 3 is my project. From that perspective, what that allows me to do is report on each one of those segments or an entire string, and this is completely and utterly tailorable to what your organisation requires in a chart of accounts itself. So what that's particularly good for is doing inquiries. So if I, for argument's sake, wanted to list all transactions for a specific department, there are a number of different inquiry tools that are available. The most common one of which is Smart List, and it's just a simple way of extracting information from the system that's been entered in. So if you've entered it into a window in GP, you'll be able to extract it out through Smart List. So I'm just going to open up my Smart List tool, and you'll see I have a number of things broken down. So what I want to be able to do is search for a range of account numbers. So search for a range of transactions that have gone through for a range of account numbers. So what I can do by clicking on my financial, and you see I have purchase ledger, sales ledger, inventory if you want to use inventory. There's lots of different options that are available. I'm going to use financial. So within financial, I can look at my summary balances for every single account number. I can look at my transactions, or I can look at a range of account numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a list of all my account transactions. There we go. So that's just a very, very generic list of every single transaction that's gone through the system. Obviously, everything ends up in the general ledger anyway, so you can find it. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to see which account numbers have been used on all of my purchase ledger transactions. So what you'll see is I have a number of columns going along here, and I can sort on any of these. At the moment, it's sorting on journal entry. I can sort it on series, date, account number, so on and so forth. So what I'd like to do is I'm only going to bring through stuff that's actually originated in the purchase ledger. So I'm going to go to search, and series is equal to purchase. And there we have it. So that's now searched through the system. I can see that I've got 368 transactions in total, which have gone through the purchase ledger. Now, there's not a huge amount of information on here. What I'd like to do is actually show the originating creditor ID, or if I've done sales ledger, the debtor ID. So I'm going to go to my columns, and this is what's displayed at present. I'm going to add in who the originating debtor or creditor ID was, and you see it appears at the bottom. I can rename that to be anything I like. And you'll see there's all I have there. What I'd like to do though is not show any of my purchase ledger control or my VAT entries. So what I can do is I can go to search, and I'm going to do where account number is not equal to, just going to move that down, and also so there we go. So what we have now is we just have our cost entries against our specific nominal codes. So I want to add a little bit more information on here. So I don't necessarily need the journal entry number or the series. Now, although I'm searching on series, it doesn't have to appear in this. So I'm going to go into my columns, I'm going to remove journal entry and the series. I'm going to make this a little bit better English. Transaction date. I'm actually going to change that to say cost code, and I'd like to add in the originating invoice number as well. And there we have a very, very quick way of extracting all the information. And I could then search for a specific creditor ID, a further account number, a specific document number. And again, what I can do from here is I can double click. It shows me the journal entry, and I can then drill down and have a look at the original invoice that it came from. What I can also do is, if this is something I want to run on a regular basis, I can save this as what's known as a favorite. So I'm just going to call it payables transactions. There we have it. So by adding a favorite, what that's enabled me to do is it saved a little list for me just here. So I won't ever have to do that again. But what I can also do with that, to save me having to come into SmartList and pick it from that list, on my home page, I can create a link to that. And under my reports, I'm just going to add it onto there. I'm just going to go into my purchasing, go into SmartList favorites, and I'm just going to find that one that I've just created. Sorry, I was in the wrong place. I'm just going to go into that one that I created. There we go. There's my payables transactions. I can mark that, and I can add to my reports. So now, on my home page, I have a very, very quick link to that, which I can just click on, and it runs my reports. If I then want to very, very easily dump that into Excel, I can do. And there it is, and that's just an Excel spreadsheet then, and you can do whatever you like with it.